Data Center 4.0, the future of the digital ecosystem. In this podcast series from DigitalCentre, data center leader, expert and APAC-based marketeer Omer Wilson will be in conversation with technology and industry experts on the future of the data center and the wider ecosystem. Today's tech-fueled transformation era is putting traditional data centers under unprecedented pressure. This pressure is coming from businesses, users and consumers from every physical, virtual and cloud-centric angle. What does the future hold for the data center? Hello and welcome to the next installment in the DigitalCentre podcast. We hope as always that you're keeping safe and well in these ongoing, unique and predominantly remote working times. We have a really exciting new guest as always for our series. And a non-steering committee group member, an external guest, which we're very excited from a key industry leader in technology and IT outsourcing, not just in Asia but across the globe. So we're joined, very excited to say, by
Shyam Ganeri, who is Associate Partner, Cloud Services at IBM.
Shyam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Omar. Looking forward to a chat today.
Great to have you. And obviously, given your role, you have such a close and unique view on the cloud landscape across organizations in Asia. And I think that's where we're keen to focus, I think, this discussion on and really bring it to the current climate we're seeing in the world around COVID and the acceleration in digital transformation. So kicking off, the cloud industry, as we all know, is gathering speed, and it seems at a constantly accelerating rate. In your opinion, what are the trends that are defining the industry right now, and what are the ones that IT and data leaders should be looking towards? Really to keep their company ahead of the game. What are the key trends, and maybe from those trends, what are the one or two that you can give us a bit more background and detail on what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think in terms of the trends, I really see a symbiotic relationship between the cloud industry and the industries that it caters to. And what I mean by that is the trends in cloud are influenced by these industries, and sometimes the industries themselves are influenced and driven by these cloud trends. So as you're aware, there's a lot going on in the cloud space, but I'll probably list just a few key trends that are top of my mind, and then probably delve a bit deeper into a couple of the key ones. So the defining trends that I see are really around hybrid, multi-cloud, artificial intelligence and machine learning, as well as the focus on edge computing and distributed cloud. So I guess those are the top ones. What we're also seeing is focus on industry cloud. So these are purpose-built clouds for heavily regulated industries such as financial services and healthcare. And we are seeing a lot of traction in that space with respect to industry-focused clouds. I guess in parting, I'll just mention also the convergence of IT and OT, which is information technology and operational technology. And a lot of that is driven by Industry 4.0. And so in terms of some of the detail that I mentioned earlier, if I look at the overarching trend, which is hybrid multi-cloud, and I see that more than 80% of organizations are actually running their workloads across private cloud and one or more public clouds. And this trend, in fact, has spawned a number of other related trends, and I like to call them the 3 C's and the 2 M's. So the first C, in fact, is cloud security, which obviously has been in such great focus with the cyber attacks in the US. and more recently in Australia at JBS, right? So I was reading this article which stated that between January and April 2020, there was an increase of 630% in terms of cybercrime. Now, those are startling figures, right? So as you can imagine, cloud security is top of mind for a lot of organizations. And if you look at the next C, which is cloud cost optimization, so organizations are typically over budget for the cloud spend by an average of 23%. So this is an increasing concern among organizations, and especially with the adoption of hybrid multi-cloud architectures. There's an increasing focus on the financial governance. The next C for me is really about containerization and cloud native architectures. And again, as I said, this is driven by the adoption of hybrid multi-cloud. And you see that there's a lot of focus on modernizing workloads to cloud, and containerization and cloud native architectures are increasingly in the focus. And the two M's that I mentioned earlier were really about mobility and monitoring. So again, with the adoption of hybrid multi-cloud, you see the workloads mobility being a key concern, and monitoring across that hybrid multi-cloud estate is also an increasing focus area. So I think organizational leaders should really be looking at these cloud trends and feed them into their business planning and strategy exercises, so that they can then leverage these trends to innovate, grow, and optimize the business. I guess that's the way I'm seeing this go, Omar.
Very interesting, especially around the security angle, Sham. I think a lot of the listeners will be seeing a lot in the news, clearly on how attacks unfortunately seem to be ever increasing as we become more and more online and digital, especially under the pandemic. I think unfortunately they'll probably increase. So very interesting to hear your insights on that perspective as well as the other areas. So excellent response. So maybe just to focus in on one area around and you referenced there are a few trends from the industry as a whole. I think as enterprises think of cloud, invariably, and you can obviously give us the stats and the general trend, but hybrid multi-cloud seems to be the strategy that almost all enterprises are now focusing on. When we look at hybrid multi-cloud as a strategy, from your perspective, and given your unique role in consulting to the cloud adopters, how can companies make that adoption easier? How should they approach a hybrid multi-cloud strategy correctly and to ensure success?
Yeah. So don't get me wrong here. So hybrid multi-cloud is a complex beast, right? So most organizations are better off avoiding it where they can. But what they do realize is it does come with certain benefits, right? So I would say most organizations should really focus on what is the value that hybrid multi-cloud really provides to them. And by that, I mean, business value specifically. So if hybrid is your end state, and if the CSP of your choice doesn't offer a regional presence, so that's the scenario where you're looking at the hybrid estate. And multi-cloud now, where you're talking of 2 public clouds or more, is really maturing from that utopian state of choosing to spread workloads across public clouds. And where the industry is really heading towards is picking a primary public cloud where you host the bulk of your workloads, and then use the secondary cloud as a DR for your, let's say, your super critical workloads, or very specific use cases where a certain cloud service provider is head and shoulders above the competition, right? So you've got to be very careful and very selective in terms of why you're choosing to go down the multi-cloud route specifically. And as long as that reason, whether it's certain specific use cases or DR, or whether it's just about maintaining some competitive tension between the cloud providers. So as long as you've got really good reasons, and then you're willing to work on the trade-off that's involved in terms of running that hybrid or multi-cloud estate, then that's the way forward. In terms of our experience with helping organizations with enabling a successful hybrid multi-cloud adoption, I've noted a few key elements that would make that adoption successful. So I'll just list them now for the paucity of time, but I guess the key ones for me are to centralize provisioning, and that could be through ISE tools like Terraform, for example, that you could use for provisioning workloads across multiple clouds. It could and it's also about centralizing monitoring. So you've got a single pane of glass that gives you that holistic view across your hybrid multi-cloud estate in terms of what is running where, what's the how is it performing, and basically the health of your estate. And also about centralizing identity and access management and governance. So you're talking of things here like having, let's say, a single Active Directory, which then serves as your identity and coarse-grained access across multiple clouds, or you're looking at something like a cloud access security broker. So it's all about centralizing a lot of the elements where you can around both financial governance and technical governance. I guess some of the other things that I would want organizations to keep in mind is to also have controlled diversity, and that's important, because you don't want. You've got diversity in terms of clouds, but you don't want to just keep building onto that diversity and just introducing more complexity, right? So I would say focusing on controlled diversity is key, as well as leveraging native features where you can. So look at what the cloud service providers offer and look at leveraging them where possible. And where there are gaps, then you've obviously got the marketplace and you've got other third-party tools that you can leverage. But really focus on controlling that diversity and leveraging native features as much as possible. I would also stress on hyper-automation and orchestration. When you're living in that hybrid multi-cloud world, you want to automate and orchestrate as much as possible and not be doing things manually, because that would be a total nightmare across your private and public cloud estate. So you definitely want to be in the position where you are automating everything as much as possible. And while you're at it, try and maximize portability of workloads as much as possible. So, a common technique that a lot of organizations use is, for example, the use of containers, which, for example, Docker with Kubernetes, which gives you a level of portability. So these are some of the things, that organizations should keep in mind in terms of enabling a successful hybrid multi-cloud adoption. Omar.
Excellent. Really excellent, Shyam. I think a lot of key points for people to take away there. We can, along with the podcast, when we upload it, we can share more details and contact information for yourself, Shyam, as well, for people to deep dive or reach out to you on any of those points, because I think there's a lot of key adoption highlights there for enterprise leaders to consider. So next question, as we all know, the past year, probably now 2 years, has seen a major disruption across the world. And clearly, in your role, you assist customers daily in their digital transformations. So from your perspective over the COVID period, how have your clients responded? And from a listener perspective, what common challenges have you seen them face? And any advice that comes out of that you want to give to listeners as they probably encounter the very same things in their own businesses?
Yeah, look, COVID-19 has been stressful for a lot of us, right? But I guess it was also an eye-opener for a lot of organizations in terms of the strength of their digital capabilities. And I think most of them realized that they really need to accelerate their digital transformation programs, which has in turn led to an even greater focus on leveraging cloud services, because cloud, provides that ready-made enterprise-grade foundation or platform for digital transformation. So what I've found is that most of these organizations, and I'm referring to large enterprises here, are impeded in their digital transformation efforts by legacy technical debt, essentially, right? And I know this is not breaking news for most of the listeners, but that still is, in my opinion, the biggest roadblock for digital transformation. Apart from the people, process, and compliance related challenges that organizations face. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet here. So there's not a ready recipe for success that can be provided. But having said that, there is a holistic adoption of cloud that will definitely help these organizations gain that momentum with respect to cloud digital transformation. And when I say holistic adoption, I mean not purely looking at it as a tech transformation, right? My advice would be for these organizations to also focus on the changes needed to organization culture, skills and roles and responsibilities of people, service management processes, tooling, DevSecOps, etc. So all these elements, apart from the tech, are extremely vital to enable digital transformation. And organizations that ignore these will only do so at their own peril.
Excellent point. Yeah, and I think that's, if you agree, Sham, that's an area people forget a lot. They always focus in on the technology, especially newer, maybe smaller and newer enterprises focusing and speeding up their transformation. Always focus on the technology, but you make a great point there. People and process is usually as important, if not more important, and always harder, right? Usually,
absolutely.
Let's say.
Absolutely. We've seen many organizations not just focusing on that culture, the people, and the process aspect.
Great. Let's move to the next question. So, app modernization and migration. It's quite a hot topic, and especially for a little while now. How do you feel companies are responding to it? Are they still just paying lip service to this, or are they actually implementing? And any other overlooked challenge, including this, that you think are putting companies at risk around more disruption, sort of both for this year and going into next year?
Yeah, this is a great question, Omar. I think app modernization in particular has been a hot topic in the context of cloud adoption, and is well understood among organizational leaders to be vital for a successful cloud transformation. And yet we do see very little being done on the ground to that effect by most organizations. So unfortunately, most organizations I'm seeing are resorting to the lift and shift approach for large parts of their estate. And solutions like, VMware Cloud on AWS and Azure VMware solutions are only adding fuel to fire. I'm not against this approach per se, right? Lift and shift does make perfect sense in certain situations. For example, if your data center lease is expiring, you just want to get stuff off your data center, that's the way to go. What I'm concerned about is that lift and shift to cloud is increasingly seen as an easy way out for a lot of organizations with mandated cloud migration targets. So if my end state is hybrid cloud oriented, why would I not take the time to progress my workloads on the cloud modernization journey? Again, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach. As I said, there can be several milestones along the way. So there can be levels of modernization, but it is important to have, I think, that clarity of thought and a defined roadmap for your strategic workloads. That's something that I think is lacking in a lot of cases. Not modernizing workloads to cloud means that these organizations have essentially shifted the problem from the data center to the cloud. And the risk from a business or technology perspective remains largely the same. So imagine there's another COVID-like disruption, and these organizations may only be marginally better. And if you compare that with actually investing in modernization, whether the goal be improving the resiliency or the performance or the security, operations, or just organizational agility via the whole containerization, microservices, CI/CD approach. What you're ensuring is that your digital capabilities are growing by leaps and bounds, and therefore you're much better prepared to tackle future disruptions. So I guess I would say that app modernization is something that organizations definitely need to focus on. And there's a lot that needs to be done to address any future business risk if this is not taken seriously.
Understood. Great overview again, and such a key and hot topic. I think we see and read a lot about the app modernization and activities organizations are engaging on. So I think it's very, very worthy to hear from you around what you're seeing on the ground as people actually go through it and try to implement, or successfully or not, depending on the case. So very, very, very useful. So I think, we're approaching sort of the last question. Has been a great discussion and really, really insightful. So to sort of almost summarize as well, given your role and experience in the region across very, very different sectors and organizations within Asia Pac, and giving it to us, straight as you see it, where as a region do we stand on cloud adoption? Would you say that we're succeeding? Are we further behind by a margin, or are we further behind other regions? And is there, if there's an area, what do you think we can be doing more within the enterprises in Asia? Because it's the fastest growing sector in whatever sector you want to look at: technology, cloud, data centers, internet use, tech platforms. Everything is fastest in APAC. How are we doing on cloud adoption?
Look, you're very right in saying that it's a region which is seeing a lot of traction, but I think there's definitely more that we can be doing, especially in the area of holistic cloud adoption, as I've outlined earlier, right? So looking at it not just purely as a tech transformation, but looking at the other aspects as well. I would also love to see the focus among organizational leaders shift from being on cloud to being successful with cloud. And what I mean by that is having a razor sharp focus on how is cloud making a difference to your top line, to your bottom line, or your business risk. So it's not just about how many workloads you're running on cloud, right? But it's really about how can cloud contribute to your business growth, innovation, efficiency, customer acquisition, customer satisfaction, any such business metrics that, highlight your success with cloud. That is the key. In saying that, as I said, I see the region as a whole is definitely pivoting to cloud as the technology platform of choice. And I'm sure we will hear many more success stories in the coming years, not just from the startups, but also from the large enterprises.
I would agree 100%. And I think, without a doubt, Asia Pacific is just getting going. And as many have said and continue to bear fruit, it's the Asian century is well and truly begun and now speeding up, I think. So I think it's very, very relevant. Shyam, thank you so much for your time and insights. Please do stay safe, stay well.
Yeah, thank you, Omar. Thank you for having me on your show. It was great talking to you.
Always a pleasure, Shyam. And I think there was a lot of insights and a lot of questions that we'll get. So we'll definitely have to schedule a follow-up for later in the year. So we'll hold you to that.
Sure. Looking forward to that, Omar. Thanks.
Thanks again. And thank you, listeners again, and everyone that joined this session and download and access all of our content. Please keep an eye out for our announcements and the DigitalCentre.tech website and newsletters and social media feeds. We will have new guests again very soon and continue to share insights for you on the changing landscape of cloud, data centers, and technology from Asia and beyond. So leaves me to say thank you, and please do stay safe, stay happy, and stay well. Speak to you again. Goodbye.